All right, hello everyone and welcome. This session is designed specifically for all of you Terminale students in Anglais Monde Contemporain. Today we're going to dive into a really key part of your curriculum, this whole idea of identity. So let's kick things off with a really powerful statement from the American Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She said, "Just being a woman is quite politicized here in Washington." I want you to just let that sink in for a moment, because this idea is going to be the hook that gets us thinking today. And that quote, well, it's the perfect lead-in to our topic today. This fits right into Theme 3 of your AMC program, which is all about representations and expressions of identity. And even more specifically, we're zeroing in on Axis 1, identity and diversity. So all of this leads us to the big, central question we're going to tackle today. How do contemporary English-speaking societies navigate that tension between who you are as an individual and where you belong as a nation? And trust me, this isn't just some abstract academic question, right? It's at the very heart of so many political debates happening right now, as we'll see when we look at how personal identity bumps up against state policy. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the case of AOC. Then we'll get our key vocabulary straight. After that, we're going to dig into this idea of citizenship. Is it a tool or a reward? We'll compare a few different countries, and then we'll finish up with your very own analytical toolkit to make sure you're ready for your exams. Sound good? Let's jump in. All right, first up, in Identity Politicized, looking at the case of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We're starting with a real-world example here, so you can see exactly how identity plays out in the world of politics today. So when we look at the source material on AOC, what becomes super clear is that her identity is multi-layered. She's not just one thing. She's a woman in a space that's mostly men. She's a person of color in an institution that's been historically white. And she's a progressive who's shaking up the old political establishment. See how all those layers work together? They all shape her politics, and that's exactly what she's getting at with that quote. Her identity isn't just personal. It becomes a political tool she uses to push back against what she calls patriarchal structures. Okay, so with that real-world example in mind, let's move on. Section 2 is all about defining the discourse. Look, to really analyze these issues with the kind of precision you need for your exams, we've got to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So let's nail down some key vocabulary. Let's start with the big one, identity. It's so easy to think of this as just one simple fixed thing, right? But it's really not. Identity is more like a mix of all sorts of things. Your beliefs, your personality, how you look, how you express yourself, and all of that combines to make you who you are, both as an individual and as part of a larger group, whether that's social, cultural, or even national. Okay, next up, multiculturalism. Now this one is super important because it's not just a nice idea, it's often an actual official government policy. It's the philosophy that says a country shouldn't just tolerate different cultures, but should actually acknowledge and celebrate their differences, giving them a real space within the main political culture. And that brings us to diversity. This one's pretty straightforward. It's simply the reality of all the differences that exist in a society. We're talking race, gender, religion, language, you name it. In fact, things have gotten so complex in many places that sociologists have even coined a new term for it, super diversity, just to try and capture how incredibly mixed and layered modern societies have become. So if you have all this diversity, the big question is, how do governments and states actually manage it? And that question leads us right into Section 3 and this really central debate about citizenship. Is it a tool or is it a reward? And the C.I. Dobe source gives us this fantastic way to think about it. On one hand, you have citizenship as a tool. The idea here is that you give newcomers citizenship early on to help them integrate, to give them the tools to participate in society. But on the other hand, you have citizenship as a reward. In this model, citizenship is something you earn only after you've proven you've successfully assimilated, usually by passing tests on language and culture. So what's the trend? Well, the really crucial point from the sources is that, especially in Europe, the needle has been moving more and more towards that reward model. This shift is often justified as a response to what some call a crisis in managing diversity. And the result is, well, you guessed it, more tests, more requirements, more hoops to jump through. Okay, let's move on to Section 4, Models of Multiculturalism. It's time to see how different countries actually put these ideas into practice. And paying attention to this kind of compare and contrast approach is going to be absolutely key for your analysis in AMC. Now, this is where things get really interesting because you can see the contrast so clearly. So, on one side, you've got countries like Canada and Australia. They officially embraced multiculturalism back in the 70s and tend to see citizenship as a tool to help people integrate. Then you have the UK, which is a bit more, well, ambivalent. After the 7/7 bombings, there was a definite shift away from multiculturalism towards a more reward-based model. And then there's Germany, which made a huge shift from a system historically based on blood to one that's now based on passing tests about values and history. It's a much, much tougher process. Okay, we're on to our final section, and this is where we bring it all home for you. Section 5, your analytical toolkit. The big question is, how do you actually use all this stuff for the baccalaureate? This is all about taking these ideas and turning them into a killer, structured analysis. Okay, for both your written work and your oral exams, I want you to burn this method into your brain. Point, example, explanation, or PEE. It's simple. Step 1, make your point. State your idea clearly. For instance, Germany's policy is a reward model. Step 2, give an example. Back it up with a fact or quote from the document, like applicants have to pass tests on history and values. And finally, step 3, explain. Connect the dots. Explain how your example proves your point and ties back to the main theme. This simple structure is your ticket to showing real analytical skill. And to really take your analysis to the next level, here's some vocabulary for you. Think of these as your power words. Using terms like to navigate attention, or a multi-layered identity, or contrasting assimilationist versus multicultural. These are the words that will make your arguments sound sharp, clear, and academic. So start practicing with them. So, to bring it all together and to answer that big question we started with, what's the conclusion? Well, there's no single, easy answer. The real takeaway is that this relationship between who we are as individuals and who we are as a nation is a constant, ongoing negotiation. And that push and pull, that's really what defines so much of the contemporary English-speaking world. And I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We've spent this time giving you the tools to analyze the world as it is right now. But what about tomorrow? In a world of super diversity, a world that's more connected than ever, what does the future of national identity even look like? That's the big question I'll leave with you.